April 13, 1986. Brooklyn, New York. 1:47 p.m. Frank DeCicco walked out of Tommaso's restaurant on 86th Street in Bensonhurst. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk. He'd just finished a late lunch with Gambino soldier James Fila. DeCicco, 50 years old, was John Gotti's underboss, his right hand, his most trusted advisor. He wore a tailored suit that cost more than most people made in a month. In his jacket pocket, the keys to his brand new 1986 Buick Electra. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. He never made it to the driver's seat. At 1:53 p.m., as DeCicco approached his car parked on the corner of 86th Street and Bay 8th Street, a massive explosion ripped through the afternoon quiet. The bomb, packed with C4 plastic explosive and ball bearings, had been attached to the undercarriage of his Buick. The blast was so powerful it shattered windows 3 blocks away. DeCicco was thrown 15 feet through the air, his body torn apart by shrapnel. He died instantly, but Frank DeCicco wasn't the intended target. The bomb was meant for John Gotti, and the only reason Gotti survived was a twist of fate that would reshape the American Mafia forever. This is the story of how a scheduling conflict saved a mob boss's life and triggered the bloodiest internal purge in organized crime history. To understand why someone wanted John Gotti dead in April 1986, you need to go back 16 months earlier. December 16, 1985. Sparks Steakhouse, Manhattan. 5:26 p.m. Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino crime family, stepped out of his Lincoln Town car with his bodyguard Thomas Bellotti. 4 gunmen in identical white trench coats opened fire. 12 shots. Both men dropped dead on the sidewalk. The hit was orchestrated by John Gotti, then a capo running a crew out of the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Queens. Gotti had multiple reasons for wanting Castellano dead, but the most important was survival. Paul Castellano was about to have Gotti killed for violating the family's no-drugs policy. John Joseph Gotti Jr. was born October 27, 1940, in the Bronx. 5th of 13 children in a family that scraped by on construction work when it was available. By age 12, Gotti was running with street crews in East New York, Brooklyn, hijacking trucks, stealing cars, learning that respect came from fear and violence. By 1976, Gotti was running his own crew out of the Bergen Club, specializing in hijacking cargo from JFK Airport. The operation was earning $2 million annually by the early 1980s. But Gotti had a fatal flaw. He allowed his crew members to traffic narcotics despite Castellano's strict prohibition against drug dealing. Castellano knew about Gotti's drug involvement through FBI wiretaps. The boss was planning to eliminate the problem permanently. Gotti would be called in for a meeting and wouldn't come back. But Gotti found out through Frank DeCicco, a respected Gambino capo, who decided Castellano needed to go. The Sparks assassination was planned with military precision. Gotti assembled shooters from different crews and positioned himself across the street to watch. Within hours of Castellano's death, John Gotti had seized control of New York's most powerful crime family. But not everyone in the organization supported the coup. Vincent "the Chin" Gigante, boss of the Genovese crime family, was furious about the Castellano hit. Not because he liked Castellano, but because Gotti hadn't asked permission from the commission. In La Cosa Nostra, you don't kill another family's boss without approval. Gotti had violated that cardinal rule. Gigante was also concerned about Gotti's methods. The Sparks hit was too public, too flashy. It brought unwanted attention from law enforcement and media. Gigante preferred the old ways: quiet eliminations, bodies that disappeared, business conducted in shadows. But rather than declare open war, Gigante chose a more subtle approach. He would work through intermediaries, finding allies within the Gambino family who shared his concerns about Gotti's reckless leadership. He found those allies among Castellano's former supporters, capos who felt marginalized by Gotti's rise, soldiers who missed the stability of the old regime, men who believed Gotti was leading the family toward destruction with his flashy, violent style. The conspiracy began forming in early 1986. Conversations in social clubs, meetings in restaurants, coded phone calls. The message was consistent: John Gotti had to go. And Frank DeCicco, despite his role in the Castellano hit, was seen as a potential bridge between factions. This put DeCicco in an impossible position, caught between competing loyalties in a world where choosing the wrong side meant death. The bomb that killed Frank DeCicco was unlike anything previously seen in American organized crime. Military-grade C for explosive, remote detonation device, ball-bearing shrapnel designed to maximize casualties. This wasn't a typical mob hit. This was warfare. The weapon was built by Herbert Pate, a demolitions expert who'd served in Vietnam as a combat engineer. After the war, Pate worked construction in New York, specializing in controlled demolitions. By the early 1980s, he was selling his expertise to the highest bidder, including organized crime families. The Genovese family reached out to Pate through intermediaries in early April 1986. They needed something special, something that would send an unmistakable message. The original target was John Gotti, and the plan was to plant the device outside the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Queens. But intelligence indicated that Gotti would be dining at Tommaso's restaurant in Bensonhurst on April 13th. The restaurant was owned by a Gambino associate and frequently used for family meetings. More importantly, Gotti always parked in the same spot when he visited, directly in front of the restaurant, driver's side facing the street. The plan was elegant. Pate would plant the bomb under Gotti's car while he was inside dining. When Gotti returned to his vehicle, a spotter across the street would detonate the device remotely. Maximum damage, minimal witnesses, clear message to anyone who thought they could defy the old rules. The conspirators knew Frank DeCicco would likely be present. They accepted this as collateral damage. In their calculation, killing Gotti's underboss along with the boss himself would create even more chaos within the Gambino family, potentially allowing them to install more compliant leadership. On the morning of April 13th, 1986, everything went according to plan. Herbert Pate successfully attached the explosive device to the undercarriage of what he believed was John Gotti's car. The spotter took position across the street from Tommaso's restaurant. The detonation equipment was tested and operational, but John Gotti never showed up. The reason was mundane, a scheduling conflict that saved his life. That morning, Gotti received an urgent call from his lawyer, Bruce Cutler. Federal prosecutors were threatening new charges related to the Bergen Club's hijacking operations. Cutler needed to meet with Gotti immediately to discuss legal strategy. The meeting was scheduled for 1:30 p.m. at Cutler's Manhattan office. This created a timing problem. Gotti was supposed to meet DeCicco at Tommaso's at 2 p.m. Manhattan to Brooklyn during afternoon traffic was at least a 45-minute drive. Rather than reschedule with DeCicco, Gotti made a fateful decision. He called his underboss and suggested they meet later that evening instead. DeCicco could handle whatever business they had planned alone. It was a routine change, the kind of adjustment that happened constantly in their world. Neither man thought twice about it. But that casual rescheduling saved John Gotti's life and sealed Frank DeCicco's fate. There was another factor that only emerged later through FBI surveillance. Gotti had become increasingly paranoid about car bombs since the Castellano hit. He'd heard rumors about Genovese family anger and potential retaliation. His security measures had become extreme. He rarely drove his own car, varied routes constantly, and always had vehicles inspected for explosives. But those precautions weren't applied to Frank DeCicco's car, because Gotti wasn't supposed to be in it. At 1:53 p.m., Frank DeCicco walked out of Tommaso's restaurant alone. He'd finished his meeting with James Fila, discussing routine family business, territory disputes, collection problems, nothing urgent. His 1986 Buick Electra was parked directly in front of the restaurant. He'd owned the car for less than 2 weeks. Surveillance footage from a nearby bodega shows DeCicco approaching the driver's side door casually, with no sign of concern. He pulls out his keys, unlocks the door, opens it. At that moment, the bomb detonated. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The explosion was massive. Herbert Pate had used approximately 2 pounds of C packed with ball bearings and metal fragments, designed to direct the blast upward through the vehicle's floor. But DeCicco wasn't inside yet. He was standing next to the open driver's door when it went off. The blast threw him 15 feet across Bay 8th Street. Ball-bearing shrapnel tore through his torso, arms, and legs. Metal fragments from the car acted like bullets, causing massive internal injuries. The Buick's roof was blown completely off. The engine block was pushed 6 feet forward. Windows shattered 3 blocks away. Witnesses described the scene as a war zone. DeCicco was still conscious when police arrived, trying to speak, but unable to form words due to his injuries. He died at the scene before paramedics could transport him. The official cause of death was massive internal bleeding from shrapnel wounds. The bomber's spotter, positioned across the street, had a clear view. FBI wiretaps recorded years later captured Genovese family members describing the aftermath. It looked like a missile hit. Nothing left of the car. Nothing left of the guy. The message was unmistakable. This was what happened to people who supported John Gotti. John Gotti's reaction to Frank DeCicco's murder was swift and brutal. Within hours of the bombing, he convened an emergency meeting of Gambino family capos at a heavily guarded social club in Queens. The message was simple: find the traitors and eliminate them. Gotti suspected the bombing required inside information. Someone had known about the meeting at Tommaso's. Someone had identified DeCicco's car. Someone within the Gambino family had provided intelligence to the bombers. His paranoia, always present, reached new heights. He stopped eating at restaurants, varied his schedule constantly, traveled with multiple bodyguards, and used armored vehicles. Most importantly, he began systematically eliminating anyone he suspected of disloyalty. The first victim was Robert DiBernardo, a longtime Gambino capo who'd been close to Paul Castellano. DiBernardo ran the family's pornography operations and was suspected of maintaining contact with Castellano loyalists. On June 5, 1986, he was lured to a meeting in a Queens warehouse and shot 3 times in the head. His body was never found. When other family members asked about DiBernardo's whereabouts, Gotti simply said he'd gone away on business. The message was clear: question Gotti's leadership at your own risk. The killings continued throughout 1987. James "Jimmy" Brown Fila, the soldier who'd been dining with DeCicco, came under suspicion simply for being present at the restaurant. Despite 30 years of loyal service to the family, Fila was found shot to death in his car on September 18, 1986. 3 bullets to the back of the head, execution style. Louis Melito disappeared in March 1987, suspected of maintaining contact with Genovese family members. Liborio Louis Coppola, a capo who'd expressed reservations about Gotti's leadership style, was found shot to death in his social club in July. Each murder followed the same pattern: a routine meeting that turned into an execution. The DeCicco bombing caught the attention of federal law enforcement. The FBI's Organized Crime Strike Force, led by prosecutor John Gleason, recognized that Gotti's violent consolidation of power presented an opportunity. A paranoid, violent leader makes mistakes. The Bureau launched an intensive investigation targeting the Gambino family's internal warfare. Electronic surveillance devices were installed in social clubs, restaurants, and family members' homes. The conversations they captured revealed the extent of Gotti's purge and the paranoia driving it. In one recorded conversation from January 1987, Gotti told underboss Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, "I don't trust nobody no more. Everybody's a potential rat. We gotta clean house completely." That conversation would later be played in federal court during Gotti's racketeering trial. The investigation also revealed details about the DeCicco bombing conspiracy. Herbert Pate, the demolitions expert, was arrested and agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for protection. His testimony exposed the Genovese family's role in the assassination and the network of corrupt professionals who'd facilitated it. By 1988, Gotti's purge had eliminated most suspected traitors, but created new problems. The organization was smaller, more paranoid, and increasingly isolated. The violence had attracted unprecedented federal attention, with grand juries issuing subpoenas and pressure mounting on family members to cooperate. The breakthrough came when Sammy, the Bull Gravano, Gotti's underboss and closest confidant, began secret negotiations with federal prosecutors. Gravano had grown tired of the violence and paranoia. He was also facing multiple federal charges that could result in life imprisonment. Gravano's decision to cooperate was motivated by both practical and personal considerations. Practically, he knew the federal cases were solid. The FBI had recordings, financial records, and witness testimony that would convict everyone. Personally, he'd lost faith in Gotti's leadership. The Purge had eliminated men he respected, and the paranoia had made normal operations impossible. On March 2, 1992, Salvatore Gravano took the witness stand in federal court in Brooklyn. His testimony exposed the inner workings of the Gambino family and directly implicated John Gotti in multiple murders, including the systematic elimination that followed Frank DeCicco's death. John went crazy after Frank got killed, Gravano testified. He thought everybody was against him. He started killing guys left and right. Didn't matter if they were guilty or not. If he suspected you, you were dead. The prosecution played FBI recordings to support Gravano's testimony. In one conversation, Gotti could be heard discussing the elimination of suspected traitors. They think they can bomb my underboss and get away with it? I'll show them what happens when you come after the Gambino family. On April 2, 1992, after 13 hours of deliberation, the jury found John Gotti guilty on all counts: racketeering, conspiracy, murder, and obstruction of justice. Judge Leo Glasser sentenced him to life imprisonment without parole, specifically referencing the wave of violence that followed DeCicco's murder. Gotti was transferred to federal prison in Marion, Illinois, where he spent the rest of his life in solitary confinement. He died of throat cancer on June 10, 2002, at age 61. The DeCicco bombing marked a turning point in American organized crime. The violence demonstrated that traditional rules governing inter-family relationships had broken down. Vincent Gigani's strategy proved successful in the short term. The Gambino family was severely weakened, while the Genovese organization remained intact. But the long-term consequences were devastating for all New York families. The violence attracted federal attention that led to successful prosecutions across the board. The RICO statutes, combined with aggressive surveillance and informant recruitment, dismantled most of the traditional mob structure. Despite extensive investigations, it wasn't until 1997 that federal prosecutors finally indicted Vincent Gigani for his role in the DeCicco bombing. The trial revealed the full extent of the conspiracy and how the Genovese family had recruited Gambino traitors. Gigani was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, where he died in 2005. Today, the corner of 86th Street and Bay 8th Street in Brooklyn looks much the same as it did in 1986. Tommaso's restaurant is still there under different ownership. The neighborhood is quieter now, less connected to its mob past. But if you know what to look for, you can still see the scars, a concrete patch in the sidewalk, shrapnel marks on building walls. The 86th Street bombing was a failed assassination that succeeded in destroying everything it touched. John Gotti lived, but his empire died. Frank DeCicco died, but his death exposed the corruption federal prosecutors used to dismantle La Cosa Nostra in New York. The bomb meant for one man ultimately brought down an entire criminal organization. In the end, that's the lesson of the car bomb that changed everything. In organized crime, there are no winners, only survivors. And sometimes, not even that. A scheduling conflict saved John Gotti's life, but couldn't save him from the consequences of his own paranoid response. The Purge designed to restore order created the chaos that law enforcement exploited to devastating effect. The families that survived did so by adopting lower profiles and avoiding the spectacular violence that characterized Gotti's era. The age of flashy mob bosses and public assassinations was over, killed by a bomb that missed its target but destroyed a world.